Welcome back to the Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cobb. I want to thank you for joining us here on our 67th episode. And on this episode, we get to talk to Adam Moseley, head coach at Hoover High School in Alabama, as well as the now 18U national pitching coach for USA Baseball. Coach Mose was a 2021 state finalist at Hoover. In 2017, they did win the 7A Alabama State Championship. They've won 5 area championships in a row. And in the 7 years he's been there, he's had 44 going to play college. 16 of them went to Division I. Before Hoover, he was at Virgil Grissom, where he had a first and second round pick. And then on the off season, he coached with USA Baseball. And he's coached 14U, been the pitching coach at the 14U level, the 15U national level. And this year, he's actually going to be with the 18U national teams. So, great pitching guy, huge pitching guy. He's won over 400 games in his career as a head coach. He's an incredible person, a man of faith, strong integrity, and just an absolute leader of men. And so, just really fortunate to be able to give a chance to talk to Coach Mose here before we get rolling with the summer. And I really appreciate him taking some time. And I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. We get into full program stuff, from culture to what he's doing in between starts. And, we just rolled from the get-go. So, again, it was just a great conversation to have with a great baseball guy. And I truly appreciate it. And hopefully, guys, it's going to help you get better. All right, so here he is, Coach Adam Moseley at Hoover High School.
All we have is 5 zones in our entire program for pitching, for hitting, how we want to approach or whatever. And it is always the same. One is always all the way off the plate. So just see it from the catcher's perspective. Okay. One is always all the way off the plate on the left side. So basically right knee on the corner, rest your body off the plate. You're basically almost straddling the white line of the batter's box, okay. that far over. 2 is on the corner. So you're the middle of your body is on the outside edge of the plate. 3 is down the middle. 4 is on the other corner. 5 is all the way off the plate on the other side. And that's all we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we call pitches from there. We talk approach from there. Like we talk about, do you either want to be a one zone hitter right here? Maybe it's a 2-0 count and you're, really struggling or whatever. Let's just be a one zone hitter right now. And you pick your zone that you're hunting, or you're rolling, you're seeing, beach balls come up there with, hey, you just be 3-zone hitter as far as we're concerned. You just, if it's on the plate, let's let them fly. Mm-hmm. And so it just makes communication in game and after game and charting things and everything else incredibly simple to me, because we just, that's our program language is, where was that pitch? It was a 1. Okay, perfect. I know from there. And we call pitches the same way. Like, if we're doing a scripted pen, it's like a fastball in the 2, a 2-seam in the 2, a 4-seam in the 3, whatever it might be. And that's how we do it. And so, I know I grew up in the 9-zone deal.
Yeah.
And played for Coach Shoup. We did 9 zones and that was awesome. But maybe it's because I'm simple. I don't know, but I just like this, simpler the better. And I think our guys kind of, they thrive in that. And it also, although I want them to have very high standards, like, man, throwing a ball in the 9-zone is kind of hard to do a lot of times. And then you're kind of building some failure in. And, that way I think you kind of have a little more feel for success too, personally. So,
yeah. And I mean, so if you want to call something up, from a pitching standpoint, you just say like, you just want it up. Like,
I got like a different sign from the catcher that be like, say up in the 4 or whatever. And
okay.
So for us, up is always, we're just going to throw it at the hands. Generally, we're not going to, we don't ever do the, throw it way up or anything like that. It's just not our thing. But, and then down, same concept. But our pitchers know too, like, a 1-2 breaking ball, if it's called in the 4 zone with a right-handed hitter, like if you bounce, that's a win. If you leave it up, that's bad. So it doesn't even really necessarily have to be called. A lot of the time they just know. And we talk through it a bunch.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, and the scripted pens help with those things too. So
scripted pens. I think scripting everything that you can is great. I think, one of the things guys don't do maybe that helps pitchers is like taking a lesson from a football coach. A lot of times they script, like say their first 10 plays or whatever. Well, script your first 10 pitches of the game. Throw them in the pen pregame so you have the feel already. And it's going to look weird sometimes. You may be 2-0 and throwing spin down the middle or whatever. But hey, that's what we practice. That's what we're going to do. And so, I think it's up to the pitching coach to know what gets that guy into the game as quickly as possible and gets him to, because the first inning's is the toughest inning.
Mm-hmm.
So for most of them. And so if they've already had their first inning prior to the first inning, it's a positive. But I know like some guys, maybe they need to feel the breaking ball glove side. That's just what they have to feel. So let's throw some glove side breaking balls very early to get feel for them to get ready to be locked into the game. And maybe he needs to feel the fastball, the two-seam arm side and see it sink and work. So we call that, and then you got him into his feel real quick. And it's even funner when you can trust the guy and you go, hey man, what makes you feel great? And he
Right.
tells you, yeah. And then you're like, all right, these are the first 5 pitches. You like them? Coach, I'd rather throw a change up in there. Awesome, dude. Let's put the change up for the third pitch and just roll with it. And, more often than not, you have tremendous success doing it that way, I think.
Yeah, talk about the ownership too of that, that's what I like too. That's why so here's a question I was going to ask you about, like the plates.
Okay.
Thinking about the system, thinking about the play calling system. Even taking that a step further, instead of having the zones, like what if there's a system that a kid would have in mind saying like reds down the middle, like I'm not going to get like even if we would have given them ownership and choice of like, okay, I want you to create this plate as a visual for you and say, what does this look like to you? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or is it colors? Like what do you think?
Yeah.
I'd almost be like, here's your homework. Here's a blank template. Here's the plate.
Yeah.
Come to me with what your system's going to be.
Yeah. And I think the simpler, the better, when it comes to that, because good luck finding kids don't know 9 colors. So you better have less than 9 there. But, also tell me like when you go to practicing that, I saw a deal, Montana Fouts was the rage of the College World Series, and rightfully so, for Alabama, or her and the pitcher from James Madison, both were hugely popular. And I saw a clip of somebody put on Twitter. I don't know who it was, but you could build this into what you're talking about. Like they were putting cinder blocks in the middle of the plate, and then they put the two dummy hitters on each side of the plate. And so it was essentially like stay out of the middle and stay on the corners, and they were throwing bullpens to that. And I thought it was awesome. So it could be the same general concept there. Like, hey coach, in order for me to not see or to not throw the ball in the middle of the plate more, I need to like have a visual that shows me don't throw the doggone ball in the middle of the plate. So maybe they're seeing red there. So you paint the cinder blocks red and you just work outside of the cinder block and you got what you need at that point.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah.
To still give them like the 5 zones just as because this is going to be how we like script things and how we're going to call pitches and things like that.
Yeah.
But then, like your visual could then be on top of what you would need from that system.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So that would still be the ownership and giving them that little bit of like homework. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they can kind of see that. Because I just like the video. And like I said, that's why I didn't get the green turf. I wanted something like white-ish.
Yeah.
As close to white as I could. That will be just like the plate. You know what I mean?
Yep. I do.
So it's so I'm looking forward to it. It's just where kids could roll it up, put it in their back pocket, and go play some catch.
The carpet's a good idea. I've already we had a player a couple of years ago whose dad owns a carpet store. I just called him like after you sent me the text, like, hey man, I need some old carpet.
Yep.
He said, what for? And I told him, he goes, this was even cooler. He and I always joked about our umpires and how, they would get bigger and smaller and all those kinds of things. I said, we need to have a plate for each umpire that we know.
Yeah.
It's like, so now we're going to have like the tiny plate, the big plate, and just have a little fun with it for the kids. So they get it and understand it. It gives them a little ownership, like you said.
Yeah, that is super good. I mean, that's kind of like reminds me of like Butch's things about the blocks, like especially when it comes to hitting, like you got your no strike block, you got your 2 strike block, that's even definitely cooler. Just even given the visual, because like I told kids, it's an umpire zone,
no doubt.
What it comes down to. Like, it's really not a strike zone.
You can train whatever you want to train for knowing the plate, but if you don't know what the umpire's calling, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
So like so with you guys using this system,
Yeah.
how do you guys, I mean, how do you guys incorporate that during practice? Like, is it just really your flat ground? Like, is that part of like just every pitcher's like throwing program?
Yeah, it is. And we give like a ton of freedom for like flat ground type. We don't do it. I mean, we do some flat grounds. We do an elevated flat ground, which is essentially throwing it on the incline, but based on the day, but essentially like you want them to know what zone they're weak at. They've been weak in recently. And some guys want to practice like crazy on the weak zone, and some guys want to practice like crazy on what they're strong at.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, that's all we talk about is in terms of like sequencing it up is, hey, let's throw some balls in the 4 zone right now, and let's see, say you're a right-hander, you're trying to learn to front door fastball, so I want you to start it in the 5 and bring it to the 4 and start getting feel for it. And then you relate it to, we still do release points. Like a lot of people talk about, it's still been a thing for us that, if you, in theory, down the middle is right off the end of your nose, and then the 4 zone is right kind of off your ear, and then outside is farther off. And so I know it doesn't exactly translate to it, but it lets them feel like they're getting to fixed points in space and learning to feel the fixed point to do that. And so in a flat ground, it's a lot of our language is speaking like that. And then on the mound, we do that, and you can get the 9 screens that to throw to. And I would much rather always have them throw to that versus throw to, me sit there and catch them or me be on the other end. I want to be on the end with the pitcher. And the 9 screen never lies. That's what's so great about it. Like that is, you can't mess that. Like, did the catcher frame it? Did he not? It doesn't matter. It either was in there or it wasn't. And then we kind of work off of those too. I wish if I could invent something, I'd invent a 9 screen that you could kind of slide them back and forth and get to the, to our zones, which we're not there yet. But, that might be, maybe I should call a patent person or something. And
there you go. I just gotta get a good welder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we got those around here now.
That's
in Alabama, you can find a welder in a heartbeat.
That's it. You get a good welder. I mean, there you go. But I love that. I love that even on the infield too. Like just putting out the infield. Like you can get a 6'3" guy out there, and he can get that's great. But you got to hit this screen right here.
No doubt. I think it's the more you can dehumanize it, quite frankly, the better in practice to me. When we're talking about those kinds of things, it's like the guy, there's the argument over fungo or machine ground balls. Like, let's work on actually just getting it right first, and then we'll worry about the fungo and the guy picking it or whatever. Let's get it in the ballpark first. So yeah, putting the screen over there is a no doubter for me.
Oh yeah, another track and field thing there too.
Yeah.
Just like, did you do it or not?
Yeah, no doubt. You either did it or you didn't. That's exactly right.
That's it.
Take the subjective out of it, make it all objective, and there you go.
Absolutely. So like, thinking of like flat ground work too, like from a pitcher standpoint, like, will there be a specific focus even like when a guy's breaking ball? Like, is it just really about just commanding the zone, or is it just, hey, spin a breaking ball in the 3?
Well, I think you got to kind of. I think a lot of it is also what are you about to face? Like, if say we're in the playoffs or whatever, we know this team is great at hitting fastballs, which usually if they're a great fastball hitting team, the change is a money pitch against that right there, right? So maybe you have a focal point there, or early in the year, it's about let's plug our hole and not worry about even what the hitter is doing. Let's just worry about us. And so I think that's probably the first thing is what are you getting ready for, to know why you're throwing the flat ground and what you want to work on in the flat ground or in just really the bullpen. We would call it a stuff. We're working on our stuff. Right. And so I think you got to have that kind of focal point, because when we're in the playoffs or in our district play, we call it area, but most people call it district. And I know what's coming. Well, we're probably going to, shade the preparation towards what's coming. Even though you want to be good at what you do, you also want to know, what can I call that is for sure going to attack the weakness if it's there. So I think, you got that, but also early in the year, like I said, let's go, spin a ton of breaking balls if you want to. Change plates like that. That's one of the great things about flat grounds is you can change distances extremely easy.
Yeah.
And, if a guy's struggling throwing a breaking ball, scoot the plate up. He's either going to get to the top of it or it's going to look really bad. And, it kind of generally fixes itself a lot of times. So, but, flat ground teaching points, it's such a good time to teach release and, feel, and, are you trying to get your middle finger over the ball for the curveball, or you really, trying to throw your changeup through the catcher, or all those kinds of things. Those are great teaching times.
Mm-hmm. And like, it just got me thinking about, because I know that you spend time in the summer coaching and things like that, so not knowing maybe what's ahead, like, how do you change that? How do you change that in the summer? Like, what do you
work with what, they did?
Just their bullets, basically.
Yeah. Work with their bullets. What worked and didn't work in the past outing, whenever you did, whatever you threw. Like, we just had a kid who he threw game 1 for us in the playoffs the whole time. And his first outing of the summer was not good. And so we spent the whole time in the pen yesterday. It was a glorified flat ground. We just put him on the mound, and it was all about lower body feel. It had literally nothing to do with stuff. It was just, hey, let's work on your lower body feel. Like, he was essentially not engaging his backside glute in any form or fashion. And he would look like a quarterback out there just slinging it. And it was going terribly for him. And so that was one of them. And so I think you got to know, we did that one just because he had been terrible his previous outing. So let's go get him back mechanically right before we even worry about stuff at that point. But if it's a guy who, has had a good couple outings, then let's go try and make stuff better. Let's try and blend, tunnels are always fun to work in a flat ground, and teaching a guy, like, that's where many times I'll go walk out in front of the pitcher, go, hey, I want you to keep the breaking ball the same as the fastball for 20 feet. And so I'll go stand 20 feet in front of the pitcher, not between him and the catcher, but like just off the line of the pitch, and say, hey, keep it in line through me, and just give him a visual. And you can see real quick and let the catcher tell him, hey man, the breaking ball popped out of your hand, or, hey, that was really flat out of your hand, and that's going to become a really good slider. And so I think it really depends on what the global idea is, but also maybe what they did in the past outing. Because if they were terrible the past outing, you can work on stuff all you want, but they want to get back to being confident more than anything else.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. So based on that last performance, for sure. Tono, that's great. You just did a lot of constraint stuff, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, more constraints the better, as far as I'm concerned. Always.
Yeah, it seems like you love those constraints for sure.
I do. I want accountability, and I just want them to know when they've failed, like, what's causing it, and let's see if we can work through it. Because failure is the greatest teacher.
It is. Yeah, it's just feedback. We had guys like, so I'm coaching a team that most of the kids are like that transition year between JV and varsity. So most of these guys are on varsity, but they got like 5 innings relief. They're all role players on the varsity team right now. So like they come out for our first workout and it's not very good. Like, it's just, some things are just flat. Guys are just, I'm just like, look, like, you're still working this stuff out. I'm like, all this is feedback of where we are right now. That's all it is. Like, you got to continue just going about your work, and okay, flat ground's got to get better, and before you get back on this mound, your bullpen needs to be a lot more sharp, and it's just, it's just feedback. It's just all it is.
No doubt. It's feedback. And that, one thing kids today, I guess, don't understand as much is that throwers throw. It's like, they say in basketball, shooters shoot. Well, throwers throw. And if you're just throwing with no chance of failure, then you're not learning. You have no, there's not as much feedback as there will be when, hey, there's something on the line. And there's a time to throw with nothing on the line for sure. But there's also, we probably do more of that generally in society, throw with nothing on the line, than we do throw with some constraints that can give you feedback, that can cause failure, that can then make you learn, very quickly what you should be doing instead of what you have been doing.
Right. And so speaking of that, so like, do you like to compete at all, or is it mostly just like individual constraints?
Compete. I love bullpens where guys are throwing next to each other and their mouths are running. I absolutely love it. I want smack talk as long as we're not saying terrible stuff. I want them holding each other accountable. I love, basically playing horse in basketball, but on the mound. Hey, I'm about to throw one down and away, and I'm going to throw it 90, or I'm going to throw, my best bullet is 82. So I'm going to hit 82. And then little Johnny over here he's an 85 guy. So he's got to throw his best bullet in the same exact zone. And if he doesn't, we get a point. And those kinds of things, you learn more from that I think, than you do going, hey man, I'm going to go throw 25 pitches in the pen.
Right.
Oh, well, great. I mean, awesome. And there's a time and place, like the day before the game, throw your 25 pitches if that's what makes you great, or 2 days before the game. But if that's who you are. I had a guy who a couple years ago was one of the best we've ever had, and he wanted to throw 20 pitches, just feeling his stuff, the day before he started. And it was, it wasn't full speed or anything, but that was his thing. It's totally against who I would have been.
Yeah.
But that's who he was. And there's a trust value there too. Like if you start being a bad pitcher doing that, then we're going to change something up. But as long as you're throwing well, and he was drinking Dr. Pepper when he did it, like, I was just terrible. I think there's nothing healthy. There's nothing that I say is great to me, like that would have helped me out, but I'm not pitching. He's pitching.
Yeah. And the feedback was like, it works. So let's not do anything.
Yeah. He went, I mean, it was like 60 innings giving up like 1 earned run. Like, hey man, you tell me what time you want to come to the ballpark, and I'll make sure the Uber's there to pick you up.
Tell me how many Dr. Peppers I need to have in the clubhouse.
That's it. We're sponsored by Dr. Pepper now, no doubt about it. Yeah,
that's right,
for sure. But I mean, that's kind of part of the. And I'm not saying we're artists or anything, but you got to know your guys, and if you don't, then you got to trust them too. And if you don't, it's not going to go well.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I'm sure he appreciated that as well. Just that made him even grow even more.
Yeah, I think so. We're still very close, and he pitches in the SEC now, and it's we still talk, and it's always like, he's neat. Like he's the guy who wants conversation with his coach a lot. He needs that, and so we just it's great for me because I love it. I want to talk to you guys all the time. Some guys aren't that way at all. Some guys are like stone faced, no emotion, and that can work too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, speaking about like competing, like how does that change like during the season? Like does it really
probably
change?
Less between starts, less competition. I think you got to kind of if there's an art to stuff, it's knowing how much the guy needs after his last couple outings. Like if he's out there dominating folks and it's not easy, well, you probably need to make the bullpen pretty hard to keep his edge. Right. But if he is struggling, let's go make sure he can struggle all he wants in the bullpen as long as he's confident on game day and goes out there and throws BBs on game day for you where you want them. Then who cares what the bullpens were like as long as they resulted in what you needed. And so I think it's a floating amount for each guy. I think you can have some pillars of what you want to do, but it's got to change based on the guy. The work has to be put in, but maybe the competition level and the intensity level can change for each guy for sure.
Yeah. So again, it's still just that based on the feedback, and here's where we're at.
Yeah.
So here's how we're going to structure this week. Now, will you kind of build guys up out basically like, kind of build the week based on like where they're at. And then everybody kind of knows what they're doing for the rest of the week.
Yeah, we do that. The hard part is when you get a two-way guy.
Yeah.
And a guy, which we have next year, we're going to have like most of our staff is going to be, they'll play in the field too. And so then you kind of try to work in, say, a long toss from his fielding position or something like that, or along those lines. But yeah, I think you look at them like pillars and not like rules in stone. You know what I mean? We have to have like you got to have a good long toss between starts. You got to be able to flush your body. Most of those are going to happen for our guys in the first couple of days after their start. You got to have a good couple lifts in. That I do think that even that's a little different for guys. Like I'd love to have a full body lift and a lower body lift, but some guys don't want to lift within 3 days of their start because they're still sore, and so you kind of tweak that. And so, but I think you have to have those. You kind of, the general rule is crush them right after they pitch, and then taper it down as they get closer to their next appearance. That's assuming he's a starter. And the crush has almost nothing to do with a long distance. It's got, whether it's things like heavy ropes or sprints and, jump boxes and water bags and all those things are, they're unique and they actually let our players kind of have almost like a sense of ownership and a sense that like I'm doing something different than other people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like you get a water bag out right now in front of other people, they're like, man, what are you doing?
For
Like,
sure.
well, we're dominating actually. Next time we go out there, we're dominating because we did this stuff right here. And it could, you know, it's brutal when you do that stuff. That stuff that those guys are doing at 108 is there's some special stuff coming out of it for sure.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
No doubt.
Absolutely. We are rolling, man. We are rolling. This is awesome.
I love it. It's
Love
good.
it. Love it. Yeah, I mean, so like I would love to, I guess like you said, it's just finding like I love the competition. So like I'm just thinking in the summer right now, like how we can help make that work, maybe from a less intensity standpoint, but still be able to compete, see some failure in between, depending on, you know, what we would need. Just trying to see how that would work during the summers.
Yeah, well, I think maybe it starts with, you know, we're a Google school here at Hoover. Like it is, if we're going to do something, it's supposed to be on Google, right? Well, you can make a Google form really easy where the kids, you just make it for each player. And you say, hey, rate these 3 things every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how's your soreness? You know, what was your effort level today in practice? And you know, you can make it whatever you want to be. You know, how do you feel in practice? Whatever it might be, that's a marker for you. And if they're filling that out, it takes like 10 seconds on their phone, boom, 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 and then like a notes section, and they tell you, Coach, I didn't sleep real good last night, or you know, I was up in the hotel or whatever. And then you can look at that and go, okay, little Johnny felt good today. We probably feel like we can push him really hard the next day. And you don't even have to like have that super in-depth conversation, because if you got 15 pitchers and you talk to every one of them for 2 minutes, well, dang, your practice just got long real fast.
Right.
But they go out, they leave practice that day, and you tell them when they're leaving, hey, your form out questions. Then I can look at it, you know, while y'all are out getting your lunch or dinner or whatever, and I can look at it and go, okay, I really feel like Johnny needs to pitch. And so you got your phone right there. He needs to go pretty hard in the pen tomorrow. All right, he was feeling good today. Boom, let's go ahead and plug that in and roll. And I think that's one way that you can do it. You can, you know, make that with, you know, after outing performance, like reviews and things like that. You know, you can do some different things where it kind of desensitizes it, depersonalizes it a little bit, even though it is personalizing, because kids will type more into this phone than they'll ever tell you to your face.
Sure.
And then you go, okay, this is where he stands. Let's go get to work. And then when you show up to practice next day and you're like, hey, Bill, it says, you know, I know you said you weren't feeling great. You said you had a little bit of elbow soreness. Let's talk about that real quick. And he's like, dang, Coach cares. Like he's paid attention to this stuff. He gets it. And, you know, you got, like, I see most of our kids in the hallway, so it's a little easier. Next year I won't see as many because just the schedule's going to be different. So then we'll probably do more of that. But, you know, whether you're going to see them in the hallway, if you're not going to see them naturally every day and be able to have that quick convo before practice, just set something else like that up, and you kind of got all you need at that point.
Mm-hmm. That way you can also match up guys that might need to compete a little bit and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Just kind of match them up and go pitch for pitch. And
yeah, you want to say day 4 after the start, they're 3 days out from their next start. Hey, Bill and Steve, let's go. We're playing a game of horse on the mound, and whoever wins, the other one's running. Like, that's when we run distance, when it's punishment. So you got a mile or whatever, you know, something, whatever you want it to be. Sure. You're cleaning up you know, after the dugout after the game or whatever.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, buddy. This is great. Shoot, just like, if you would say things that had worked when you first started that you just still do versus the things that, man, I used to do this and I don't know why I did them.
Yeah. I think things that don't work is easier, a lot easier, but like the things that work still are, I mean, you want like pitching things that work or just in general coaching things?
In general, man. In general.
Okay. I think the things that still work are, I think it's important to open your home to your team. I just think it is. Like we don't do it a lot because as much as I would like to, simply because my house is small, my team is big, and we've got a newborn there. But you know, having them over for a dinner, a Christmas party, that kind of thing, letting them know your family is, I think it might be the most important thing, honestly. Like they have enough people using them for things. They need somebody who's developing them and they know they can count on and that kind of stuff. So I think, and I kind of talk about that you want to kind of coach for the events that matter the most. Like there's no greater honor for me than to get an invitation to one of my former players' weddings. Like it's just so special, and you want to be able to do that. And they're shamelessly, like they're not inviting you if you didn't pour something into them, and that nor should they. I tell ours that don't invite me if you don't, like if you didn't get something out of it. Don't just because, hey, well, that's my coach, I'm supposed to. No, it's your wedding. You get to invite whoever you want.
Right.
So coaching for those kinds of things, if you always have that in mind, it helps a ton. I think we used to absolutely run the piss out of our guys all the time. And my players that come back to practice now are like, Coach, man, you're so soft. Well, yes and no. Like, I mean, we just do it different. We go so hard with so many different things that if you run them too much, you're probably, you're taking away from those other things. Now, I'll hold you after a game and we'll go turn the football field lights. We did it this year. We turned the football field lights on because they had turf and it was raining, and we ran and we ran and we ran. And sometimes you need that. But other times, I guess what I've learned is over time is like, sometimes you just call them over in the dugout and go, hey, little Billy, like that ain't going to fly. And that's not what we're about. And if I see it again, we're going to have a real issue. And usually they're like, yes, sir. And they learn from it. I used to yell because I would tell them I only want to have to say it once. And what a cop out for me. Like you tell guys you want to develop relationships, but then do something that you're trying to only say it once. So how are you really developing a relationship? It's like, talking out both sides of your mouth. So look for that moment where you can come up and make it easy, the conversation easy, get their attention and go with it. So I think that's something we do now that maybe we didn't do as good a job of, I know I didn't do as good a job of it in the past. And, when you're young, I think you get away with more because they just naturally relate to you more. And the older you get, the more you got to really, really make it intentional about what you do. So that's something. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, what are some of your most intentional things? Like Sheets is a, big hug every time you're out there in the left field line.
Yeah. If I'm going to the mounds to talk to a guy, I'm touching them.
Yep.
That's just as simple as it gets. Like I'm going to, and in big moments, I'm going to put my arms around everyone I'm out there if I can. To talk through stuff. So that's an intentional one. On the field, I try to, off the field, I try to speak to every player each day. It does not always happen. I'm not going to tell you it for sure does, but you try to a lot of coaches are very much, hey, let's make our throwing time before practice like a very structured, and I want it structured, trust me, but a very, quiet, focused time. And I just selfishly, I want to go up and go, Trey, how was your day, man? Everything going good?
Yeah.
Johnny, I know you said, stuff was going bad at the house. Tell me about it real quick. Everything okay? And I'm going to work my way up and down lines and talk to guys and that kind of stuff. And I want them, I love chatter when we're playing. So I'm going to intentionally try and be a chatter guy myself when it comes to that. So that's an intentional thing. We do intentional things after, when the season ends. Like I got a stack of Bibles I'm about to write in for every one of our seniors that just left. And, I think I'm as fallen as any human as there is in the country, but we're going to try and intentionally live out life in front of them as much as we can. Like I want them to see what the sacrifices you make as a dad and to know what it's like. And we're going to tell them about it. This year was a really hard year for me personally, and they knew every single bit of what was going on because I think we need male role models in life more than anything else. For a young male, they need a guy they can count on that shows them the right way, but also shows them failure and how to respond from the failure that they make. And trust me, there's a lot of failure that comes out of this. And so I think that may be one of my most intentional things is to really try to live real life and not live in some ivory tower, come to our house, come be around it. If I need my grass mowed, I'm going to call one of our players. And if I'm going to be out of town doing USA, hey man, will you come to my house? And you want to see somebody take some pride, just go, hey, buddy, will you come mow my house and just check in on my wife and kids, make sure everything's okay? That chest pokes out, and they're like, Coach, I'm on it. And I mean, we're going to pay them for cutting the grass or whatever, but they see, like, this is what life is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know. Those are some intentional things. We do a lot, but I don't know that we do character development. And I don't know that everybody's doing character development now. That doesn't necessarily separate you. Every day is a character development. And whether you're doing this licensed class where you're paying, whatever money for somebody to give you this structured thing, or you're just sitting there and talking through life. Like, I love to go sit in our locker room and just laugh at kids, it's the silliness that they create in there, and talk through life with them. And you see them just kind of open up real quick when you do. And you got to be able to separate that from being on the field with them, because they've got plenty of friends. They don't need a friend. They need somebody that can help guide them in doing what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. No, and that's where it's so valuable to have such a guy like you, said, the male role models and guys doing it for the right reasons. And
yes.
So not how you incorporate that, you do stuff all year, you run a full program, and guys are doing baseball stuff constantly, from weightlifting to all they're doing. How are you? Or is that a separate session? Do you try to build into your practices? Is it before practice?
Yeah, so in the fall, it's a lot easier to just kind of have a day or
oh yeah.
We're going to take the 30 minutes to start Wednesday. We're going to go over the kind of a character lesson for the week and that kind of stuff. Those are easier than once you get the season rolling. It's harder, and it's more like a start practice. I'm not going to be Bianco at Ole Miss and videoing myself giving lessons or anything like that, but it's like that, right before practice, let's talk about, like, we were playing a team that kind of ran their mouth a whole lot, and it was jaw jacking a bunch, and that we knew that was going to happen. And, so you just talk through, how does this relate to life? Like, you're going to have people say stuff about you the rest of your life. And are you, how are you going to respond? Are you just going to be able to go ahead and do your job? Or are you going to let them distract you from your job and take it from there? And so a lot of times it's more seasonal based in season, or more opponent based or circumstance based, I guess. But I mean, God, I'm like, this is not a blessing, but I guess it is. Like, we dealt with a bunch, the COVID year. It just was like, hey man, God was like, I'm going to put it on the tee for you. Here's some character talks for you.
Yeah.
You don't control anything, no. Or you don't control anywhere near as much as you think you do. And what's really important and all those things, like, God was just kind of showing off in that regard. Like, hey man, you want some character lessons? Here you go, brother. So it's more like that than it is. I know Coach Corbin does his classroom and his character. We do some of that, but nowhere near as in depth as he does. And I think it's just more my style I love it when kids will share and go, hey coach, this happened in class today or whatever. And they'll be like, hey, can I talk with the team about that? And reference you. And they're like, yeah. And then we grow together, and boom, that kind of stuff.
So guys will bring that to you, like, during the day when they see you in school, and then you bring that to practice, or bring it to like the pre-practice talk.
Yeah. And it won't be that day, but it'll be,
whatever,
like, hey,
you find it appropriate.
Yeah. Like, hey, let me think about this for a second. I think that's another thing that we use the 24-hour rule for a lot of stuff. We talk to parents about using that. If you have an issue, if it's important in 24 hours, then that means it was really important. So let's wait. Well, I do the same with the players. Like, I try to not respond, I mean, obviously there's things you have to respond right away to, but a lot of them you want to give yourself time to marinate on that just a little bit and then talk about it. So yeah, we'll do that a lot of times, talk about, somebody came to talk to me about this was happening, and okay, let me think about this. I want to make sure, I'm talking about it the right way. If you're okay with me talking about it with the team, and they'll be like, yes, or coach, no, I'd rather not, you not say anything. Okay, good. Then we're just going to work with you on it, call you in the office and talk a little bit or whatever. And it's, your assistant coaches, if you trust them, they're going to bring you a lot of stuff too. They're going to come to you with, hey, little Johnny, coach, you may not know about this, but grandpa died a couple of days ago, or whatever it might be. And, as the head coach, there's a lot they're not going to tell you, but they're going to tell that, the pitching coach or the hitting coach or the shortstop coach or whatever, whoever it might be. And I think football gets that so much, they've got so many different position coaches that develop such strong relationships. And, baseball's not always that way, but if you turn your assistant coaches loose, they'll do it. They'll bring a lot to you.
Yeah, it's pretty valuable. It's absolutely,
yeah, no doubt.
super valuable. Oh man. It's great. I'm just thinking about it just coming into my mind, like how, you got BMAT with USA Baseball, and I know both of you guys like with character development, but I mean, all the guys. And so how do those kind of things, when you want to develop, and that's, like you said, you're preparing kids for the most important events. And I love that, the events that matter the most. Yeah. And how do you relate that to guys like in the summer, like when you're really in your summer program?
Yeah, I think, the phone is so valuable in the summer to do that. Like we've got a group me, like I'm sure everybody does. And you share accomplishments, you share struggles, you share nuggets, you do it all sometimes through that. Cause we live in one of the homes of perfect game now. And so we get them say 3 days a week in the summer. So our 3 days a week is to make sure we kind of get them, tighten back up to go back out and show themselves off again. Like this whole first 3 days this week was, let's get you ready to be scouted for the first time in a long time. Because this is the first weekend college scouts can get out.
Yeah.
So, but then it's let's talk through stuff. Like I'll get something fun I see on Twitter that I think applies to people. Boom. And I'll send it out, and then they'll share stuff about it. And I think it all goes back to the climate that you put out there. If you are roasting guys all the time for speaking up, they're not going to speak up. But if you build that up, and I have to work on it all the time. The little bit of a sarcastic take on a guy and hammer him for something that really isn't that big a deal. And I think I'm having fun with him and he takes it the wrong way. Well, you got to watch that. You got to really sometimes just say, hey man, that's a heck of a point. That is awesome. And build them up. And so a lot of it happens over the phone for us in the summer, with just that, trying to stay in touch. I make them send us their stats all summer long, on a form, just a Google form. And so we'll praise people too. Like, hey, did y'all see little Johnny? He went off this weekend. And, all those organizations are putting videos out about kids now. And so we can kind of, harness that too. But what happens is they know, hey, coach is involved in what I'm doing this summer. Coach cares about what I'm doing this summer. And I can ask him questions. I can share. My team's involved in what's going on this summer. They want to see me play well. And, the conversation continues.
So it's just like, and so much of this that you talked about really mentions about culture, and creating the culture, and you have, how long you been at Hoover now? You've been at Hoover.
This was my 7th year. We just finished up.
Right. And you were at Virgil, right? Virgil Grissom?
Grissom High School. Virgil Grissom High School.
Yeah. So when in the 7 years you've gotten to this point, like what have been the biggest things within your culture to kind of get it to this point? You have these guys like texting you and being vulnerable, because it's basically what you're kind of saying is you're extrememely vulnerable with these guys, letting them know about life. And
I think the first thing is they need to know that you're going to be there consistently. You're going to run. You're going to be in the front. We need to be in the front. Be in the back. We need to be in the back. One of those things that coaches today don't always do is, I think the rule is real simple. When the players, when they win, they won. And when the team loses, you lost. The coach lost, and you take the bullets. And I think they need to know you'll take the bullets for them. And I think they need to know that you're going to absolutely push them to the front when they're having success, and you're going to praise the mess out of them. And so you start there by being consistent in doing those sorts of things, and just being consistent in being there and consistently pushing them, and them knowing like we're going to change every year certain things, but we're also not, there's some things that are not changing. And the work ethic is going to be the same. We're going to require you to work exceptionally hard, or it's not a program for you if you don't want to work exceptionally hard. And that's fine. Like that's your decision. But in doing that, one of the big things we've done here is we hire a group to do our strength training. Okay. So when they're doing that, that lets us step to the back and let the strength training guys have everything organized, plan the day, and then you essentially, for lack of a better term, sweat with your kids. Like you're back there in the line when they're running or whatever, and you're just trying to build them and you're trying to, push them through things. And when they're in the weight room, it's the same deal. And so they know, hey, coach is with me no matter what. And I think that is the separator, honestly, for a lot of high school coaches versus a lot of summer coaches, right? The high school coach is there. If they're doing it right, they're there all the time. Like they are the constant in the life. There are summer programs, a lot of them, who are the same way. And that's awesome. And it's a whole nother tangent, but high school coaches that run away from that summer program, that cracks me up. Like, stop, we have to work together.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of summer programs, as you know, because you deal with it all summer long, that are there for, the 9-10 weeks of the summer. And then they get out and all they want to do is be able to say, Joe Smith from team Joe's Crab Shack, signed with so-and-so college and added his name to the list.
Mm-hmm.
And the great summer programs aren't the way, and the great high school programs aren't that way. And that's who I think players gravitate towards these days, is those who are consistently diving into them and hoping to, and consistently building them in any way they can. Mm-hmm. So if I were saying that, like, what have we done? I think that's what we've tried to do, is just be consistent.
Consistent being there.
Yeah. And consistent is, I think players gravitate to consistency. I just do. They don't gravitate towards, the wrong player is going to gravitate towards the kind of the fly by night thing that just throws the stuff at you and doesn't have substance. But the programs that have substance and are always there, that's the one players want to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You get taken care of.
No doubt.
For sure. Oh, dude. So going back to your pitching, you're being such a pitching guy and being the head coach, and being in charge of pitching for your program and being the head coach and managing a game. Like how has that been a balance for you, man? Like what have you kind of learned through the process?
Well, so interestingly enough, I do not call him anymore for our team. So we have a pitching guy also who his name's Aaron Wasserman, and Aaron played in the big leagues. And so, if you can pitch in the big leagues, you can probably call your own game in a high school game. But we do a lot of prep on the front ends. And then it was the genesis of me doing that, having him call the pitches, is exactly what you just said. Like, it's very hard to call the pitch, but also check the first baseman, the second base, shortstop, third baseman, et cetera. Make sure they're in the right spot, all that stuff. So we got beat sometimes because we didn't have a guy in the right place and to handle the pitch. So it's a very much a conversation during a game between me and him. I'm going to let our coaches coach. So I'll ask him, like, what are you doing here? And he will say, we're going to spin or whatever. And so we're going to get him out with spin. So I know where we're going to put our defense. We have some audibles. We'll put the defense on, but from a managing a game perspective, I have always found it hard to call a pitch and, make sure the right guy's ready to pinch hit if he needs to pinch hit, and make sure we got the courtesy runner ready or the pinch runner ready. And those things are hard to do all that together. So, I'm in the dugout now all the time. We have another coach that I let coach third, who's been a high school varsity coach before, and he knows his stuff. And he set the record this year for getting guys thrown out at the plate. So we've already had to talk about that, but, as I told him, if you get somebody thrown out, if you don't get anybody thrown out, you haven't sent enough people.
Right.
But, I think that's a tough line for a high school coach.
Yeah.
When so much is being demanded of you that you need to kind of, if you can take that off, I think it's a smart thing to do, or call the pitches and have an offensive guy who does that and is done with it. Like, you don't touch it. Or have call the pitches and have the defensive guy right next to you you can have just some very quick communication cues that really affect, what they do with the defense. Cause we're going to have a scouting report on the team we're going to play in a big game. Then we're going to know where we want our guys started, but you got to be able to read the swing too, right? Like, your guys throwing fastballs and this guy's late on him. Well, it can say dead pull all the time, but if he's late that day. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments right away and trust them to do it. So
Mhm.
kind of a different answer, I guess, to your question than you were thinking, but
No,
just
no, it was
that's kind of
great.
how we do it.
Yeah, it was just real though. Like so, like I mean, but I'm sure that you've been in years where you didn't have those,
Yep.
right? And you know,
Yep.
and that's another thing about high school life is, you know, you might those guys might not always be there. You might not have the guys that
That's
year,
right. That's right.
and so any kind of advice to like what you would do in that situation, or what did you try to do?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to, let's just start with like defense and because I think defensive positioning is obviously a hot topic for a lot of people, but it's also like a undercoached thing. Like how many teams actually just make sure their players are knowing what pitch is coming, and most
Right.
of them have no idea. So you start there and let the players coach it. You know, if you're a good team, your best player, or you're going to have really good players at shortstop and second base. So let them coach through the whole deal. Like, and they can shift on their approach. You know, they see fastball coming, so they on their prep steps they work a little more backside, or on off speeds coming they work a little more pull side and that kind of stuff. So you start there. Then you put it on the hands of the players a lot. Like when I had only two, I would come up and go, hey, in the first inning, like tell Johnny, like, hey man, listen, you're the pinch hitter if they got a right-handed pitcher that comes in the game. So if that's happening, but from the fourth inning on, you come find me and let me and come ask, and I'm not going to be mad at you. Come ask coach, do I need to be ready? And I'll tell them, you know, like, yeah, you do, or no, we're going to let the lineup flip one more time. And the next time Johnny comes up, you're the pinch hitter for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you put it, the more you give those players insight into what you're trying to accomplish, the more the game will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to like running the offense, you know, there's some things that our players are really going to know that we're going to do it all the time. And we're going to have some signs for that are really quick one-touch things. And in doing that, it lets you kind of, if you can get to some situations like that where you give one touch and they know what's going on, then you can do some, I guess, like you can speed your delivery of the message up, because to me, being next to the hitter on deck is the most important thing. Right. And so like you want to be able to talk to him before he goes to the plate. Well, if you're talking to him and having to go through a whole system of signs and maybe throwing an audible out at somebody, that gets pretty hard.
Sure.
So if you got some real quick things you can do that you've practiced in practice, and that kind of would go towards a whole another practice talk, but yeah, then you get like, they know what you want to do before you do it. Like, I mean, everybody knows first and second, nobody out in a big game. In the seventh inning, we're bunting.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing it. And so we got a one touch, so we put it on, you know, and it's done. Unless it's like our donkey that's got 25 bombs on the year, which I still haven't coached that guy, but he may come at some point. He might be here.
Good luck getting that one.
Yeah, no doubt. So, you know, that being said, like they know, and we've practiced it enough. And you know, again, the players are going to know, they know what works and doesn't, you know, the more you do it. And I would say the fewer coaches you have, obviously the more you're going to lean on players, but also the more you probably need to do even more game review to tell them, this is what we wanted to do. This is what I was thinking. If you video your games, it takes care of a lot of that too. You know, we video everything and it makes it easier. Yeah,
for sure. I'm just proactive communicating. It's our, you know, on your lineup card, designating here the courtesy runner is, like just putting a little mark CR right on the lineup card. This could be the pinch hitter in a situation, you know, like even just the simple things like that would help as well.
No doubt. Like I looked out this year and our catcher got on, and the courtesy runner knew exactly who he was. And I swear he hasn't even gotten to first on the walk, and our guy's waiting on him. Like, okay, man, you got it figured out, you know, like this is good. And it's not really legal, but you know, the umpires he's like, hey man, you got to step off the field for just a second. So this guy can get to first. So yeah, I think the more you can empower them, the better when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. And there's our roles there too. You know, everybody.
Yeah, no doubt. Roles matter. They just so matter. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know, like I'm just thinking about like you said, you've worn it out, and I know we can go down this road of like practicing, you know, like, so
yeah.
So game situational, like you're trying to scrimmage a good bit to put these kind of things in.
Yeah. And you had Sherm on, right?
Yep.
To talk. So he turned me on to something that him and a couple West Coast guys we talked about, and they the West Coast guys I talked to start every practice with like they call it a triangle drill, but essentially it's you put a pitching machine out there and you put coaches calling offense live, you put coaches calling defense live, and say it's the first 15 minutes of practice and you've done situations for the first 15 minutes and it's like a new bullet is being thrown out of the machine every 10 seconds. It's just fast paced and you video it, right? Then they're locked in for the rest of practice, because if you screwed up during the drill, if it was a mental mistake, there was an accountability piece to it. Like maybe you're going and touching the foul pole or you're doing push up, whatever it is, right? So they're locked in for the rest of practice. You videoed it. So now the next day, if you want to start practice with that or finish practice the next day, we're like, hey, we're going to go and watch some video of this. We just had first thirds and we were running our standard play and they stole and we were in a terrible position and this is not what we want to be. And they learn it really fast because, and again, it's that whole constraints thing and it's the whole, adding accountability for mistakes. And it was only 15 minutes to start the practice, but now I'm mentally locked in for the rest of practice. They had to get rid of whatever it was they had in the school that day. Whatever, girlfriend talked bad to them or had a bad lunch, but it don't matter because the whole team's counting on you or, you're in trouble. Well, just a short period like that every day can be a valuable teacher, especially if you video it. So, but it will inter squad too, but a bunch, probably more than we should have to start this year. That's why we started off the year so bad, or it's one of the reasons probably, but you do all that, you do enough and you video it and you can really reteach it and share it with your players. And you have a bunch of video, clips of, hey, this was when we did it really well. So let's make sure we use that and, just kind of keep hitting them back with it over and over and over again.
And putting those situations in right away. And typically people wait until the end to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
It almost would give you feedback and almost what we would need to definitely do at practice as well.
No doubt about it.
Like, look, well, now we're just going to rep this. Now we're just going to rep this, or we got to, work on our double play feeds, or whatever
That's it.
Is. Or
no question.
We couldn't get a bunt down during our first 15 minutes and bunt time. So that could be some definite automatic feedback and make practices just totally more, bought in.
No doubt. Yeah, I think they're bought in right away when you do that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So here's another question with that. Just especially picking your brain here as a pitching guy, because I've really got, because like I said, I'm a big competitor and thinking about like live bullpens, like competitive bullpens when they're trying to get after it a little bit. Let's say that guy that is dealing all the time, so we got to put like, would you ever or have you like even let's say you got that tweener guy that just hasn't got the innings, you're gonna throw them out. And your bullpen's going to be live.
With all hitters. The time. Yes. I think here's what I think people do too little of: live appearances and taking advantage of the fact that, we talked about flat grounds. Well, what is to say you can't throw your flat ground to a hitter?
Yeah.
And just work on your stuff. If you got the ability to use a governor and really throw 80%. And work on your stuff and see how a hitter reacts to it. Well, A, the hitters get better, and B, you're getting better.
Right.
Well, we go live all the time. I want as many live outings. It goes back to like, do you want them to experience failure or do you not? And failure is the greatest teacher, hands down. And so, let's go let them experience failure as much as we can, or success too. Like, I go out there and one of our favorite live appearances, you want to see pitchers walk around with their chest out. Is say, hey, every hitter that gets in there, it's 0-2. I mean, they start snapping stuff off and, strutting and everything else. And our hitters are working on their 2-strike approach. And we were like, you've seen it. We're like, we have 2 fields. So we'll have the backfield doing 2-strike hitting and the game field doing, an actual normal batting practice setup or whatever. And now all of a sudden you can do that in a cage, you can do it anywhere. And the intensity level and the learning capacity to me has just gone up just by doing that. So we go live a bunch, and I have zero problem with me personally shortening the mound to say 50 feet at 80%.
Yeah.
Well, it makes the hitter better. It makes the pitcher better, and they're all working on their stuff and they win. We all win in that instance, but you got to schedule it now. Like that's
right.
That's one of those where scheduling becomes a little more difficult. It's harder to do just because, you got to keep track of what your pitchers are doing, or you will blow them up, but color code your pitching. Like the best thing a pitching coach can do is have all my pitchers every day of the week. This is what they're doing. And, start your practice knowing what your pitchers are doing and then go from there at that point.
Or like you said, if something pops up too, hey, this guy ain't got work. We got to get him work. We want to get him competing. Or like the form comes in, all these guys are like feeling really good, then they're going to compete. Like, let's just throw a hitter in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. And so say you want to do that triangle drill to start the practice. You got two guys that feel really good. Well, brother, you're out there for 20 pitches and you're out there for 20 pitches, and something is happening on all 20 of those pitches.
Yeah.
And they're going to figure it out. I mean, the learning capacity goes way, way up, because you can put a watch on a kid and a pen and say, hey, man, I need you to deliver that pitch 1-3 or better. And that's cool, right? But you can do it with all our base runners sitting over there at first base in a triangle drill, and they're trying to steal off of you. And if they steal, they're going to let you know they just stole the base off of you. And it just gets better real fast.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like a pace guy too, that just likes the pace of practice and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that, because I know I think, is that some of the anxiety or guys thinking like it just doesn't move fast enough?
Honestly, it's just trying to be efficient, and I want the game to move fast too. Like when after the pitch previous is thrown, I'm coming with the sign, whatever the signs are. Throw it to him, get your eyes on me, and let's roll. Because from a pitching perspective, I always wanted to know, or I always wanted to be able to control my pace. So if I can get the pitch in as quick as possible, he can do whatever he wants to do on the mound. And by the time he's looking at the catcher, he's ready to throw the pitch down. And let's go. So I want to go fast. I think that being said, like, learning to control your own pace is a big deal. And there are teams that needed to go slower, and it's not from anything other than like one of our best players has a long routine every swing. He takes a minute, it's not really a minute, but he takes a while to go through his swing routine. Well, that's him. And so I'm not going to speed him up because he's pretty good. Well, sometimes they take too long. And so I think there's value to that. But we want to go fast in what we do, just from an efficiency of time more than anything else. I think when you have kids, all of a sudden you want to be as efficient as possible,
Yeah, to get in, get home.
That's it.
I agree. But I'm just thinking of just like, what we all just know what that looks like. Pitcher gets out there, you're trying to, put a scrimmage in or a live situation, and, things just slow down.
Yeah, they do. That's why you put that governor on.
Yeah.
Every 10 seconds. And you just have extra baseballs behind the plate or behind the mound, and ball gets thrown away. Dude, don't chase it. Just get the next one up and let's go. There's a lot more value to throwing the next pitch than there is making sure that ball didn't get in the puddle.
Yeah. No, 100%. Fantastic stuff, man. We just kind of covered a great array of a wide range of stuff, man. I appreciate it, Mo. It's
no doubt,
awesome.
Man. No doubt, man. It's been fun for sure.
It has. So, Mo, if there's anybody wants to just reach out more about maybe like how you're doing the triangle drill or things like that, what's the best way to get in contact with you, buddy?
Just email me at Moseley this is such a bad email address. I wish I had a better one. It's Moseley at hoover.k12.al.us, or on Twitter. They can DM me on Twitter, and I'd share anything. There's no secrets. I think one of our biggest jobs as a coach is to, pay it forward, however you want to look at it. But, somebody gave it to you, and we're all thieves. Every coach has stolen something from somebody. It's legal in baseball. So we take and we'll also give back, though. You got to make sure you're giving whatever you can, because there's another young coach coming soon that needs to know, and you need to pass that stuff down as much as you can.
Coach Adam Moseley, just killing it. Just loved our conversation. Just hit the ground running from the get-go. Honestly, just from the start, just press record and rock and roll and just talk baseball, and from pitching to culture, game management, a little bit of practice, and just a great baseball conversation with a great baseball guy. Just loved, his zone talking about his zones and how they make them between hitters and pitchers. It's just one common communication. It's phenomenal. Release points. We talk about release points, getting to those, what that helps with the pitcher feels. And you heard so much of it individualized and how he's making programs, or, being able to do things during the week for certain kids based on of how they perform or what they're getting ready to perform. I think those are two things. Those are two good things. Here's what we're getting ready to do, and here's how you performed, both those things. And one thing bolded in my notes was coaching the events that matter the most, which is exactly why he was on the podcast, exactly why most of the guys that here, because the important events that happen the most, probably not going to be that fourth inning, sack bunt that they have to get down, or sixth inning, the knock with second and third. It'll be memorable. It's not what matters most. And you heard through his talk about what does matter the most, and the biggest compliment is about getting that invitation to a wedding, and these are the moments and the things that he's trying to help instill into his guys and his program. And he's got developing character. He's got character development in the fall. They've got a specific day during the spring, as it needs to be. But that's continuing to be part of their program. And he is consistently there, the man of consistency, and that's how he's helping build his culture, building a strong culture where they've won 5 area championships in a row, and they continue to be dominant as he continues to be there. Just be there consistently, whether he's in the front, like you said, whether he's in the front leading him or he's in the back, whatever they kind of need at that time. So just, again, if you need to email him, maybe shoot him over an email, amoseley@hoover.k12.al.us. Moseley is Moseley, amoseley@hoover.k12.al.us. His DMs are open on Twitter. You want to reach out to him at Moseley Adam. So, loved it, enjoyed it, and hope it made you better, because I know it did. So, Coach Mose, thanks again, man. Until next week, keep getting better.